First official image of Awakened Azeroth. She's gigantic. Now, if you don't know already, we looked at some of these art pieces already. These art pieces came out from a firm that Blizzard hired early in the War Within creation process. So they gave them some prompts. These guys came back with concept art, and this is what's happening with all this shit coming out right now. And evidently, there's a bunch with a really large hand in it. Is it Azeroth? Maybe. Let's see what Doran, the Teller of a Thousand Truths, has to say.
Recently, we've all been talking about how Azeroth is this elemental energy, like all of us are imagining her as this ball of energy, like the sun that we've seen in the cinematic. However, this new artwork we had discovered from the early production stages show on multiple occasions a gigantic hand. I'm talking an absolutely huge hand where one single nail is bigger than a Zeppelin.
Oh yeah, he's right. Look at that. Look at that comparison size. That's like a Hallowfall Zeppelin size of a fingernail.
However, even more interestingly, this hand seems to be resting or sleeping, and one is in the water in the complete dark, as the fish told us, in the void sea where no light shines. While this is of course early stuff, we do know in fact that this is where the World Soul is. Other artwork even shows the rift that is supposedly Kazlagar in the middle of the sea. The game so far confirmed that the prisoner of Azeroth is in Kazlagar, so what exactly is this? Is Azeroth sleeping in the literal sense, and we are about to discover her actual body?
I don't know. Could it be her hand? It's I don't think it's that unlikely. And it does look like she's sleeping, maybe underwater, which would make sense. But at the same time, we already know she's in the what's it called? The coreway or something? Not the coreway. The coreway goes down to her. But the Titans already revealed she's in like this prison aspect thing inside of the center of Azeroth, inside of the center of our planet. So how her hand could be just leaking out over there, maybe that's some really early concept art that they decided to throw in the trash. But at least it gives us a view of kind of the way Blizzard is thinking about her looking, which is very humanoid-esque.
So while we examine this out of Azeroth, I decided to ask a few of these questions to Azeroth herself, whether she can really...
Imagine the first thing we see of Azeroth is her foot. Yeah, that would get a lot of fetishes going.
Give us any answers. The coolest thing with Polyfiles, you can literally create whatever character you want, type in a backstory, get an image, tweak it just right, and then you can talk to anyone from your own WoW character to literally the world soul of Azeroth itself. I didn't hear anything about the wounds yet, but you might when you try it out with my link in the description. Check out Polybuzz.
Check it out, use code Doran.
So if you've been watching my previous video, you might have seen that I've already talked about these images, mainly focusing on the really interesting All God figures. However, just due to how interesting this is, it really deserves a separate video because there's literally a few images.
Oh wow, oh this is an eye. I didn't even look at that. There's the eyelashes and there's she's clearly sleeping here. Yeah, this would be crazy. Imagine like you're walking on a bridge and there's a massive sleeping eye behind you.
Artwork showing a gigantic hand, and as I said, massive hand that seems to be coming from a few different angles, but also from the sea, from the water. We're talking a hand where one nail is the size of a Zeppelin, which is essentially Titan size in their true form. I mean, kind of compare the sword of Sargeras.
Yeah, I guess if I had to compare it, yeah, it probably would be the size of Sargeras.
How big one nail would be. Now, just to clarify...
Actually, no. Sargeras had his hand, like, on the planet. His fingernail's probably the size of Tanaris or something, man. I mean, I guess his sword went into Tanaris, so maybe his fingernails is scaled down for maybe the same size. I'm trying to like comprehend this in my head. Maybe the same size.
Kind of compare the sword of Sargeras and how big one nail would be. Now, just to clarify this,
size matters.
If you don't understand where these images are coming from, no, this is not AI, this is not fan art, this is not like some random guy leaked it. All of these images are from a place called the West Studio. It is on their official website. It's like a concept art studio that Blizzard hired as a third-party contractor to draw up inspirations and images for the War Within in the early stages of creating the expansion. These images are actually from 2021, so about peak Shadowlands, which goes to show you that this is when they began the pre-production stage. The studio itself says that some of these images actually made it into the game, some didn't, and this was a way for them to work through different ideas for the main team.
Yeah, clearly the ones that didn't are the Azeroth ones. The ones of the Old God might still, because they do kind of look like the art on the wall in the Ash Kahet raid, so maybe those will make it in. Samiccus is a size queen. Heard it here first. There you go.
Blizzard. Now, one thing
True.
people are saying, which is kind of half true, but it's also not entirely true, these are, as they say, blue sky concepts, which means it is mainly to put ideas out there without many restrictions. But what is certain is that Blizzard knew what the goal was, what was going to happen. They didn't just tell them, you know, randomly draw some underground zones unrelated to World of Warcraft. In fact, if you really closely examine these images, you will see that many of them are actually in the game. Some zones like Ashkahet are almost exactly the same, while some all got figures.
That one kind of looked like Ouroboros. This looks like Ouroboros. I don't know if this is in the game. I don't think so.
The same, while some.
But I mean, when you talk about blue sky art, this is that old guide we were talking about recently. It's very high conceptual shit that a lot of will get tossed away. But the thing is, they were all prompted. Right? Blizzard didn't just tell them, hey, draw us an expansion. They prompted them with a lot of shit, and one of those prompts clearly was a massive, being, right? And that was supposed to be Azeroth, it looks like. He, draw us a big hand, sleeping giant, underground. That's the kind of shit they probably told them, and that's why we're seeing these things that look like they could be, a sleeping Azeroth.
All got figures, I believe, are yet to show up, which you covered in the previous video. However, the Arathi stuff is also quite
really
similar to the final product. Some
this
of
is
these
really
shots
cool.
are literally in the cinematic.
I'm kind of sad that it doesn't look exactly like this, because this Arathi concept art with the light beams coming through, this looks freaking amazing.
Some of these shots are literally in the cinematic, like the one with the Zeppelin, just without the hand. Now, here we have two interesting things, other than the belly-related stuff in the old god concepts, which as I said I previously covered, and that is this one massive hand, which, based on the nails and the way it looks, is almost certainly a female hand, and I feel like this really slipped under the radar where no one is actually talking about this. So, just think about this real quick. We know that the World Soul Prison, or at least one mechanism, called the World Core, that we've learned a few months ago, is literally in Kazlagar under Ashkahet. This is not speculation or anything, it is literally in the game, in the quest lines. First, old gods were here, then the World 3 Eluna here, through Elune and Eonar that was ripped out, and the roots that we'll soon discover, and then the Titans tried to seal up this rift, and they got their Earthen to create a chamber called the World Core, in order to be the only ones that are able to influence the World Soul. The reason we know Azeroth is literally here, like this is the heart, is because she started giving them free will, and got them to rebel when they got really close. There's all this Thragar.
Right, yeah, Thragar, that's what they became. So these diamond boys, these diamond versions of these earthen, the lore is that as they got closer to Azeroth, she started to give them free will. They became diamond boys. They were worshipped as prophets essentially, but then the earthen recently found out that they were killed by the Titans. They thought they just kind of disappeared, but no, they were killed off by the Titans.
And everything
some bad boy moments
now,
there.
Check out this really interesting image. It is one massive maelstrom, and this is not the maelstrom in the middle of Azeroth that you're used to. I somehow feel like this is concept art of what Kazlagar was like before the World 3 and everything. It's possible that the old god, the fifth old god, was actually under the sea here, but there is definitely a gigantic rift in the sea with kind of pieces of land like spikes coming out, like it was hidden, but obviously there was some sort of landmass beneath this rift. However, I want to real quick mention the sea under the sea.
It does look like the Maelstrom though, so I don't know what the hell that was supposed
literally
to be.
Also hinted at in the game. There are so many different hints about it. There is the so-called Undersea in Helloval, which is like a sea, like 2 zones beneath the sea level, but it seems like something really sinister is hiding even a level below that. The old godfish in that questline came out, returned to the depths where, as he or she said, no light shines, and told us about the old gods, and now I want to get into the meat of the matter, this artwork. So, as I said, we have a few images of the gigantic hand. I'm talking an absolutely insane hand within the depths,
huge hand.
And all positions show it to be relaxed, as if it is sleeping or it is about to wake up. And let me just tell you guys,
is that another hand right here? I think it is. That right here, this looks like 2 hands like spreading something, spreading a hole open. I don't know. But it does. This looks like this is the one image where it doesn't look like it's asleep, to me at least.
Blue sky concept or not, this is 100% not random. Like, there's no way the studio thought, yeah, just let's draw a random humanoid.
The rest of these do look like they're asleep.
Here. I would get it if it was a monster or old god being or something scary, but we know Azeroth is a she. She was supposed to awaken as a titan, so very likely a humanoid-like figure. Now, this hand looks kind of delicate, but absolutely massive. Massive. The hand itself is the size of a large building.
Sorry
about the nail, as I said, is literally the size of a
yeah, I mean, here it is again. You know what this is reminding me of, right? You guys ever see the Kermit the Frog meme? Azeroth has awakened, boys. Azeroth has awakened. That's the first thing I thought of now when I saw it, because it does look like two hands spreading something apart. I don't know.
As you can see, even more interestingly, there is yet another image that shows a boat, and the
I
hand
don't know.
is within the water, but the hand is once again resting or relaxed as if it is like sleeping. What is really interesting about this image in particular is that the image itself is completely dark. There is a boat coming through with its light, but that is really the only source of light within this image if you really look at the details. I don't know about you, but to me this seems so much like what the fish told us about the Void Sea, where no light shines. Keep in mind, no light shines. How realistic is that Azeroth is actually sleeping, like literally sleeping within this depth? These few images are so interesting to me because the world soul...
to this realm.
Scars, thank you for the follow, man. I'm sorry, I just scarred my audience with that one. Welcome to our Scourge.
has always really been way. She has been referred to as a female and a she and very likely humanoid, but we never knew what she really was. She was originally a titan, then random energy, then most recent lore shows us that Azeroth is like this elemental ball of energy.
Right.
However, what if Azeroth is literally sleeping, not as a giant ball of energy, but as an actual being, like a giant titan-like figure?
I think that's what she is.
Sleeping in the depths of Azeroth.
I don't think Azeroth's a ball of energy. I do think she's a being that's sleeping. I think this is the outer wall of her prison. And I think I've said this at this point 1,000 times. But this literally looks like the same prisons that we found Iridikron in and his siblings in, Viranath and Farak. They were all inside of these energy balls, basically, that we broke them out of. And this is exactly what they looked like. I put the side-by-side of the two cinematics many times before. It literally looks exactly like this. The rings are rotating around, and the ball of energy looks like this exactly. So I don't think this is Azeroth. This is just the prison that she's inside of, or the outer wall of that prison.
But as an actual being, like a
Fuck you,
giant
Sam.
titan-like figure sleeping in the depths of Azeroth.
One billion times. Yeah, I've said it a lot.
Depths right now, a few layers beneath.
Because I know it's true, and I can't wait for it to be revealed that I was right.
The Earth. Does this actually mean
been
that the
saying
body
this
of
since
Azeroth as a
Dragonfly.
being is hiding within there? We never really understood what world souls are, how they
Same thing right here. This image, that's not Azeroth. Azeroth's inside of that ball. And the Void is, trying to break through the wall of that ball, which is the outer wall of her prison.
work, whether they exist as a fetus type thing within some sort of a cocoon, or whether they're just energy that gets converted based on this. So it is likely that the first option is the more realistic option, like Azeroth actually exists as a body. Now, I somehow feel like a whole mess happened here, and this is not what it is supposed to be like this cocoon was broken, infested with Olga blood and these roots, so it is one giant mess beneath the earth. There is obviously that hint with the old god blood that is under the crust of Azeroth. We still had not really seen the reservoir. We had not even seen the world core, which is the chamber over Azeroth. Remember, that quest told us that the Titans built a chamber so they can be the only ones to influence it. This confirms two things. Obviously, other forces influenced it in the past, and they built some sort of a prison over Azeroth's body. Now, keep in mind, we have not seen it. In fact, that giant hole in Kastelgar in the city itself is an elevator. We've learned it was built so that the Titans can go down it and visit the chamber and observe the world soul. The elevator, however, crashes within the zones. It is jammed, so there is 100% a zone below there. We are yet to see the old Galbad, and if the old Galbad is this powerful, you would imagine it is literally a giant void sea.
I'm wondering if we're going to continue to go deeper here into the in the expansion. Now we're coming towards the end. We only have one more big seasonal patch. We're going to get like a new zone or whatever. The estimates are that zone will be the Rootlands. So maybe we do, in fact, go deeper. But I think that's it. After this point, I don't think we're going to go in Midnight. We're coming back to the surface. So, if we're going to go deep, if we're going all the way, I mean, we're going balls deep into this expansion, this is the time. This is the time for Blizzard to take us as deep as possible in Azeroth before we return to the surface and do everything we're going to do up there. So that's why I think, the next patch, 11.2, that's probably going to be our final deep dive through the core way to see what's actually just at the core of Azeroth.
with magical properties. We're also yet to see the rootlands and the roots of Luna here. Also, remember that Harnir questline, the goddess called them to come to this place to nurture the root. So
I think, yeah, these guys are about to, the Horanir, as I like to call them, they're going to become relevant in this final patch here as we go into the rootlands. That all makes sense considering these guys are like the keepers of the roots. They've been trying to keep the corruption away from the roots this entire time.
It confirms that at least in the eyes of the Horanir, Azeroth is a she and a goddess, and this might literally be her hand. Of course though, as I said, this was a very early concept art, so they may have told us that the world soul is there in this underground
Spreading the
zone,
cheeks image
and
again.
they just drew something interesting. Of course though, as I said, it was very clearly early concept art, so they may have told them that the world soul is there in this underground zone to draw something.
You don't think we'll get them as a playable race? I disagree. I think we will. I think that's literally just a button Blizzard can press, and we're going to get playable Harnir because they're just night elves. They're not even a newly created skeleton in the game. So, like, this would be one of the easiest races for Blizzard to implement ever. They're just night elves with fucking tusks. So that's a quick, like, flip the switch. We got playable Horanir. I think that's what's going to happen in this final patch. Dude, I've been stuck in a deep research loophole. It's true. There is going to be multiple new classes coming in the next 2 expansions. The Horanir, I think so. Actually, the funny thing is, the next thing we're watching is about all these new playable races that could be coming. But I just want to stick with the fact that right now, yes, I think the Horanir will be the next playable race. We'll get them in the final patch here. And then what happens going into the next patch? Sean Gleason, thank you for the sub on YouTube. What happens in the next expansion? We could, now it's a night elf, it's an elven-based expansion, I should say. Which race of elves do we currently not play? We already have like thousands of playable races when it comes to elves. Which ones don't we have? The Naga. It's the Naga. I mean, we know that Azara's coming back, so if we ever get playable Naga, that would probably be in the next expansion. But let's finish out and see what he's talking about here.
They just came up with a hand. It doesn't mean that
The new
we'll
race will be
certainly
Canadian
see a hand, but based on this, don't really be surprised if we do actually run into the body of Azeroth, like an actual body. At the moment, it is super confusing because it does seem like we're kind of going to clash with the Darkheart, with the way the cinematic ended. But we only got one more major patch left in this expansion, and obviously we'll eventually come to the world core that the Titans had built. Based on the Rootlands hint, the sea under the sea, the old god stuff and everything, it does seem like it will happen in this expansion. I think very soon we might learn what Azeroth truly is. No more Titan perspectives, old god perspectives, brokers and whatnot. We might see her with our own eyes, and then we can decide what is actually going on and who Azeroth really is.
Yep.
Thanks for watching. Check out my video in the old god part of this out by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to my raid channel by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
I agree with this. I think we are going to find out soon about Azeroth, and like as soon, we're probably going to have like this existential religious moment. I don't know, like a come to Jesus moment where we finally see Azeroth. And in that same moment where it's all like, oh my god, we're in our touchy-feelies, we got Azeroth, we finally see her, hear it, bam, we take the L. The Void wins in some way, they damage Azeroth in some way, something really bad happens, we got our Midnight expansion, now we gotta fix shit. And that's what's about to happen going into this final expansion, this second-to-last expansion of the World Soul Saga, right? The mid-series expansion. So we'll see. I do think we are going deeper. We're going to get into the Horanir lore more, and we're going to find out what Azeroth potentially really looks like. A nice video from Doran.